Hello, my name is Tony Beers, and this is Movie Grades.
And just like the movies, we play out our last scene.
Hello everybody, Tony Beers here again, and in this episode of Movie Grades I'm going to be talking about Captain America, the First Avenger, in 3D. Captain America is about a young man, Steve Rogers, who wants desperately to serve his country during World War II. Unfortunately, Steve is too short, sickly, and scrawny to enlist. However, because of his determination, courage, and heart, he has chosen to take part in an experiment to turn Steve into a super soldier, Captain America. Captain America must stop a madman, Red Skull, from taking over the world. I'll start off by saying I like this movie. There's very little of it that I did not like, so let's get what I did not like out of the way first. One thing that's bad about this movie is it tries too hard to be PC. An example of this is that in some countries the words Captain America is taken off the title and is just replaced with the First Avenger. Now this is because some countries don't like America's foreign policies. Now, personally, me, myself, I think it's ridiculous. I mean, America will always have haters. So, who cares, if they don't like us? This is the title of the movie. This is the main character. I mean, are they going to change his name throughout the whole movie? That would be ridiculous. My point is that it's impossible to please everyone. Another way in which I feel this movie is trying to be too PC is they gloss over the Nazis in this movie. There's maybe 3 Nazis in this movie, and this I also felt was kind of ridiculous. I mean, this is a movie about World War II and you're not going to have any Nazis in it? Come on. I mean, they even had Nazis in X-Men First Class, and most of that movie didn't even take place during World War II. Another example of how this movie is trying too hard to be PC is the cultural diversity in this movie. Now, I'm all for cultural diversity, but in this movie it seems very forced. Now, I'm talking about the Howling Commandos. Now, in this team, there's a black guy, there's an Asian guy, there's a French guy, there's an Irish guy. It's as if the people making this movie had a checklist and said, okay people, we have to make sure that every demographic is represented. We can't leave anyone out. We have to be careful not to offend anyone, so we have to make sure that every diverse character is in this movie. We have to please everybody. We have to have a black guy, we have to have an Asian guy, we have to have an Irish guy, we have to have a French guy, we have to have a Jew, we have to have a Muslim, we have to have a Hispanic, we have to have, I don't know, an Eskimo, an Aborigine. It just seems very forced. On the other hand, one PC thing that they missed was in the trailer. It says, heroes are made in America. That was not very PC of them. Like, other countries don't have heroes? I saw a funny comment on the trailer. It said, heroes are made in America. That's not what it says on the bottom of my action figures. Another thing that bothered me was that the Red Skull was not evil enough. What I mean by that is, when I'm watching a movie, I really want to hate the villain. For me to hate him, he has to be really evil. I didn't get that from this Red Skull. This goes back to what I was saying about there not being enough Nazis in the movie. I never seen the Red Skull being an evil Nazi. I never saw him killing Jews. I never saw him torturing GIs. I never saw him doing evil experiments on people. Kevin Bacon was a more evil Nazi in X-Men First Class than the Red Skull, and that's sad. Another problem I had was that the Cosmic Cube was never really explained. They never said what it was, what it did, where it came from. Is it magic or is it technology? Why the Red Skull wants it? How the Red Skull found out about it? I heard that it was in Thor. Unfortunately, I have not seen Thor yet, so I don't know. I'm a comic geek, and I was confused by it. I could just imagine what average viewer thought. The final thing that bothered me was the final battle between Captain America and the Red Skull. It wasn't epic enough. Don't get me wrong, it was cool, but it was too short and it should have been longer. Now let's finally move on to the good. What's good in this movie? Everything else. How's the acting? Great. Everyone was great in this movie. Chris Evans is perfect. After seeing him as Captain America, I can't think of anyone else who could have done the job better. I'm not someone who said, he can't be Captain America, he was the Human Torch. When I was watching Chris Evans, I never saw him as the Human Torch. I only saw him as Captain America. Most likely, they will never cross over the Avengers with the Fantastic Four anyways. One reason that this is not going to happen is because they were distributed by two different companies, Fox and Paramount. Besides, I heard they were rebooting Fantastic Four anyways, so I never had a problem with it. Hugo Weaving is great as the Red Skull. He's always good, especially when he plays villains. Tommy Lee Jones is good as a hard-ass Colonel Chester Phillips. Then again, he always plays a hard-ass, well, probably because he's so good at it. And the rest of the cast is also excellent. And how's the special effects? The special effects are amazing. I was particularly impressed with the way they made Chris Evans short and scrawny. I was afraid it was going to look goofy, but it looked great. The more you watched it, the more natural it looked. The prosthetic makeup for the Red Skull is great. It couldn't look any better. I'm glad they went with prosthetics instead of CGI. The 3D was okay. It's better than the Green Lantern in Clash of the Titans. There were maybe 2 times the cap shield came right out at you. Otherwise, it was nothing spectacular. I have yet to see a 3D better than the 3D that was in My Bloody Valentine. I don't know if it's because of my theater or what, but I would say it's not necessary to see it in 3D unless you absolutely have to see cap shield coming at you twice for 1 second each. The action is amazing in this movie. It really had me on the edge of my seat. I was pumped watching it. I was so pumped watching it, I wanted to get up and start punching some Nazis. The recruitment building is right across the street from our theater. I was so pumped, I almost enlisted. Almost. Now that's something that the Green Lantern movie lacked. Watching the Green Lantern, I was never on the edge of my seat. Also, Captain America had huge battle scenes with many soldiers fighting. That's what I was expecting from the Green Lantern, and I did not get it. Captain America had a whole army, and Green Lantern was just one guy and a big formless smoke monster. The story in this movie is great. It's a classic underdog story. Steve even says how he hates bullies. I love that we get to know Steve and what kind of man he is before he becomes Captain America. In the original comics, we don't really get to know him. It's like there's 2 panels, and then he becomes Captain America. I love the way they handled Bucky in this movie. In this movie, Bucky is not just Captain America's younger sidekick. He's not Captain America's Robin. They are the same age, and they are old buddies. I love the role reversal. Bucky starts off as a big guy who gets all the girls and helps Steve out of trouble with bullies. Then Steve becomes Captain America, and he's getting all the girls, and he's rescuing Bucky. I'm not too proud to admit that even though I knew what was going to happen, I still got a little choked up at the end. This is something else that the Green Lantern was lacking. I did not have an emotional connection with the characters in the Green Lantern movie. There are a few extras for comic book fans in this movie. One, the original Golden Age Human Torch is in this movie. I told this to my friend who was not a comic fan, and he said, of course the Human Torch is in it. Chris Evans is the star, which made me laugh. Number 2, the first issue of Captain America makes an appearance in the movie. Number 3, I'm not sure, but I think the prototype for the Shield's flying car is in this movie. Number 4, Cap's original costumes in this movie. Number 5, and of course, Stan Lee makes a cameo. And be sure to stick around at the very end of the credits for the Avengers teaser trailer. And before I end this review, I'd like to tell a couple of short stories. When me and my friends started watching the movie, there was an older couple who sat next to us. They were about in their 60s, I would say. And when the movie begins, we've got that first scene of the SHIELD agents in Antarctica or North Pole or wherever they were, and they found the airplane that Captain America was in. At the beginning of this scene, the older woman leans over to her husband and she says, "Are we in the right theater?" You know, this older couple comes in and they think they're gonna watch a World War II movie, and the movie starts off just the same as John Carpenter's The Thing. Another thing I wanted to talk about was there was a group of kids in the movie, and they started talking during the trailers, which always makes me mad. That's a big pet peeve of me, of people talking in the theater. And I was getting real mad, and I thought about saying something, but after the trailers they quiet down, and for the most part they were behaved, or as well behaved as some young kids could act. And it's ironic because there is a scene in the movie where Steve has to tell somebody to be quiet in the movie theater, and I thought that was funny. I thought to myself, hey kids, look at what Steve is doing here in the theater. He's telling them to be quiet. You know, listen to what Captain America says. Now, I said this before about the A-Team and the Expendables, but G.I. Joe can learn from Captain America. I mean, you could replace Captain America with Duke, the Red Skull with Cobra Commander, and boom, you'd have the perfect G.I. Joe movie. John M. Chu, I'm talking to you. I hope you're taking notes. Captain America should be your blueprint for how the G.I. Joe sequel should be. Now, overall, this is a great movie. It's not perfect. It's not The Dark Knight, but then again, what movie is? But I really liked it, so my final grade for Captain America, the First Avenger, is a solid B. I'm Tony Beers, and I'll see you next time.